Okay, so we're jumping into our adjectives unit, and today we're just going to do a big overall view or overview of adjectives. You know, adjectives they're kind of like oh, they bring spice to life. They give us more information, but they also narrow down what the person is talking about. Adjectives, you know, they're rich, they're good, and fattening. The main thing about adjectives when we use them in our writing is to make sure we don't overindulge. Just the right amount. In English, we must use adjectives to distinguish different kinds of things or aspects of a noun. For example, we in English use the word love to mean many different things. So adjectives describe exactly what kind of love we're speaking of. And one way to think about adjectives is they're the banana peel of the parts of speech. They're the bright yellow covering that really seal and define the meat that's around it. So let's jump in and learn about adjectives and how to use adjectives. And remember that language is not only what you speak, but how you speak it, the tone and the words you choose. And adjectives are very important in that. Mark Twain once said, "A man's character may be learned from the adjectives which he habitually uses in conversation." So take a moment and pause the recording and write just what you know right now before this lesson about adjectives. And then look at the middle column and any questions you have about adjectives. Jot those down as well. What you'll learn in this overview is just a brief glance of definition of adjectives, how to ID those adjectives in a sentence. There's a classification of adjectives. There's degrees of comparison in adjectives. There's adjective elements. That's where we get into word or phrases that are used as adjectives in a sentence. And then quickly, we'll go over a little bit of diagramming of adjectives and parsing. So let's jump in. Adjectives, well, they're words that modify a noun. Let's put that in there. Adjectives, that means that they describe or define. And they do this in three ways. One is by expressing quality. The other is by pointing those nouns out, you know, this dog, or defining number, 2 dogs. There are 3 classes of adjectives. The first class we're most familiar with are the descriptive adjectives. Those express some quality of a noun. So words like white or pretty, plentiful, good, and you can think of several other. The second are the definitive adjectives. And that's kind of a fancy word, isn't it? Definitive adjectives. This limits or defines without really giving a quality to the noun. So it might be words like, you know, like I said, this dog, or few groceries, or things like that. And the third that I didn't list here, so let's grab that real quick, are the article adjectives. And those are a, and the. So how do we identify an adjective in a sentence? Well, adjectives answer the questions: what kind, which one, and how many. So here's some helpful hints when you're working with your sentences trying to find adjectives. Look for descriptive words right before a noun in a sentence. The other hint about adjectives is that adjectives include those articles we talked about, a, and the. And adjectives also show ownership. So my purse, Sarah's bag, Sarah's being used in that sentence as a possessive, and yes, a pronoun, but it's being used as an adjective. So what are the classes and subclasses of adjectives? Well, we've pretty much gone over them. We have the three main classes. We have the article adjectives, the descriptive adjectives. We also have, number 3, the definitive adjectives. Expresses a quality, as we said, of a noun. And most adjectives express those qualities by 3 degrees or levels of comparison. And we won't go into detail in this lesson, but just know that the 3 degrees are positive degree, comparative degree, and superlative degree. And then the third class, the definitive, remember it's defining it. It's limiting it or defining the noun, making it more specific to exactly what that noun is. So I just wanted to show you that definitive adjectives, those that narrow, of course have 3 broad categories that you can place and some subcategories underneath that. And a lot of this you just maybe don't know the terminology. So quickly, a definitive adjective could be an article adjective. It can be definite, like the, that is the dog, or indefinite, like that is a dog, or an apple. Pronominal adjectives, those are the ones that there's a lot of them, and they demonstrate things, they distribute things, and they're also indefinite. So words that demonstrate as adjectives would be words like this boy, that paper, these books, and then of course other words like those, the former football player, latter meaning later, what you talked about previously, both, and same. Those are some examples. The distributive, you're describing the noun as you would distribute it. So words like each juice box, every good writer, either you or I, neither of those answers. And then indefinite, just think of words like all, any, certain, enough, and we don't count the exact number. We say, oh, there's a few. Again, we don't give an exact number. We just say little when we're describing a noun, or many. So we're not precise. Some, several. Those are adjective words that they're not definite. They're indefinite. And then lastly, on our big definitive chart is our numeral adjectives. In those subcategories, we have cardinal, we have ordinal, and we have multiplicative. Yes, those all sound like numbers. Yes, that's what they're dealing with. Those are the adjectives that describe how many of the noun. So it could be words like two. It could be ordinal words like the second girl in line, or it could be multiplicative like, fourfold is a big one that you'll see, threefold, twofold. Those are those kind of words that we don't use a lot in the writing we're doing now, but you will see it in a lot of writing. So what are the elements of an adjective? Remember that an adjective is any word, or it could be a phrase, like a prepositional phrase, or a clause that is modifying or describing the noun. So of course, just adjective by itself is a word, pretty, hungry. The next one would be, a next element would be a possessive case noun, which we've talked about. His pajamas, which is possessive, and it is a pronoun, but it's being used as an adjective. So that is a word level element. And then, like I said, prepositional phrases, of course, are phrase level. So they're a phrase that is modifying the noun. Appositives, we haven't talked much about this. I just briefly want to give you the definition. It's a word or noun phrase that adds descriptive info. And we'll get into that more. But appositives typically follow with a comma, and they're defining the noun even more. Participles. Participles are words that are verbs being used as noun, like twinkling stars. Twinkling would be the participle. So of course that's a word level element. And then you can have a whole phrase of that, twinkling in the sky. And so that would be a phrase level. Okay, and then infinitives. Infinitives are tricky for us because the word to is usually a preposition, but it's also usually an infinitive, and it's describing the noun. An example would be the star to watch is the pole star. So to watch is describing more about the actual star you're talking about. The difference between the prepositional and the infinitive: prepositional is followed by a noun, infinitive is followed by a verb. And so that can be both a word level and a phrase level element of adjectives. And then ones you're very familiar with by now are the relative clauses. Those pronouns that start that clause that gives more information. The teacher who came to class today. So who came to class today would be the relative clause to describe more specifically who that teacher is. So that's a phrase level element. Okay, to diagram adjectives, it's pretty easy. It modifies a noun, so it could be under the subject. This is our verb. It can be an article adjective. It could be a descriptor adjective or a descriptive, pretty, hungry, those kinds of words. And remember, it can also be a possessive, showing ownership. Okay, and so we would put those underneath the noun it's modifying. So in this example, A, it's modifying the subject noun. And then in B, it's modifying the direct object. And the direct object is also being modified by a preposition and the object of a preposition. And that object of the preposition is getting some description using an adjective as well. So basically you'll put it under the line of the noun that it's modifying. Now, one of our main sentence pattern, remember there's 5 in the English language. One of the last ones we always say it with me, subject, noun, linking verb, predicate, adjective. That's where it's complementing the noun and it's following the verb. So the teacher the teacher is Sarah. I told you wrong. The teacher is pretty would be one that would be a predicate adjective. I was jumping into a predicate noun, wasn't I? So predicate adjectives go on the main line. Appositives, when you have an appositive adjective, that goes on the line with the noun it's affirming. So it's followed by a comma. So it's making positive that you know who you're talking about in the sentence. So an example would be, he is my son. Son is the direct object. So he is my son, Tyler. Tyler is defining more who son is. Participles can be an adjective element too, and I won't talk too much about this, but the example here would be Congress, which is our subject noun, shall make, which is the helping verb and verb, which would go here. They shall make what? Laws. And no laws, thank you very much. And what kind of laws are they talking about? Those that are respecting an establishment of religion. So respecting is describing the kind of law. The other kind of adjective element that we all just love to do because of that little tree stand over there is when it's being used as an adjective, predicate adjective, but it's whole phrase itself. So the pole star is the star to watch. You can reverse that and say the star to watch is the pole star. So we have the pole star And our adjectives here, the and pole, our linking verb is the star, and our infinitive is to watch. Last, we have the relative clause, which we have spent quite a bit of time on our last unit. And we know that when we diagram the relative clause, it's a clause that's dependent, meaning it can't stand by itself. But we do the dashed line off of the main sentence, and then we put our clause as its own entity below. Now we're going to go through all of this much slower in each lesson. This is just the overview. And when we parse our adjectives, remember that parsing means that we're taking everything we know about that part of speech, and adjectives in this case in the sentence, and we're putting it into a neat, organized chart. And we're doing it in the same 6 steps of identify, define, classify, properties, role, and mechanics. Well, with adjectives, because remember of that chart, we do have a lot of subclasses, so I have added, and we can add another column to our parsing. So when we parse, we first put the word, so it would be an adjective, and then we define it. That means what question did it answer of the adjective questions. It could be what kind it answered. It could be which one is what it answered, or how many. Let me try that a little better. How many. And then classification. What is our 3 classifications for adjective? Article, adjective, and then the 2 Ds. Our descriptive or describer adjective, and then the one that narrows it, our definitive adjective. It'll only be one of those 3. And then our subclasses deals with if it is definitive, is it those subclasses of demonstrative, meaning it demonstrates. I'm going to abbreviate that, demonstrative. Or is it distributive, meaning it's telling us how we distribute that noun? Or is it numeral, dealing with the number of it, or the ordinal number, the sequence number, that sort of thing. And then properties of adjectives. That's our comparison, levels or degrees of comparisons. And remember those 3 were positive, comparative, and superlative. Now, if you're in Homer B, you won't have to worry about that. We're not going to do that in any detail. I just kind of want you to be aware of it on the horizon for next year. If you are in English 1A, then we will cover those 3. And finally, its role simply means which noun is modified. So you would state the noun that the adjective is modifying. And that's how you classify it. So remember, this is just a big overview of everything we're going to learn in this unit about adjectives. It's really going to be a step by step, and I think taking it that way and kind of seeing what you have coming up ahead and what you're going to learn makes it easier for us to see where we're going and better able to understand it. So, adjectives, not a big deal, and we will get started when we get back from break. Bye.